Okay, so here's my thought. This is that memory chip. It's got a bunch of numbers, but the numbers that really matter are the 6116. The memory of this entire keyboard resides in this chip. And so when the keyboard turns on, the CPU is, like I'm assuming like kind of grabbing like all the firmware data from the firmware, integrated circuit, and has to like kind of deposit it somewhere. And as I said, because this guy was like directly in the splash area, I kind of have to think that maybe something is really kind of screwy with this guy. Thankfully, I had the insight to order some of these chips, and they showed up in the mail. I guess like 5 of them for I think like $15 or something like that on eBay. What I did is simply kind of put one of these new guys into the board. So got rid of this guy that like this question mark. Here's the circuit board that we've been talking about, that I've been messing with and done every which thing about for like the past like 2 weeks. And as I said, this is the firmware right here, and this is the new memory chip. So I just kind of put like a brand new chip in here in the socket. All right, so for the moment of truth, as I said, taking out this memory chip, putting out one of the new ones that I bought on eBay, these guys. Let's switch it on and see what happens. So here goes nothing. Look at that. Came on. I mean, this is amazing, because I was totally prepared to have to mess with this circuit board and like kind of replace all sorts of other chips and God knows what else, but I replaced the memory chip, and all of a sudden the keyboard switches on and the display is on and the buttons are on and I can kind of switch things. Look at that. So, I mean, at this point, like I have the headphones hooked up. Probably doesn't really have any preset. Oh, there you go. Can you hear this? So I don't know how much of that you can hear, but that is a very different sound. I mean, I know it sounds kind of like similar to that kind of weird sweep that we were getting where nothing was working and the display wasn't coming on. But it is different. It's different. Now, the reason why it sounds like gibberish is because there's nothing in the memory right now. I bought like these new memory chips, and there's obviously zero information in there. So like it's loading up the firmware, but it doesn't really have any presets saved. So what I need to do next is load up the factory presets inside the keyboard, see if that's gonna work. And I have like 2 options. I can kind of either go through the MIDI or here, if I can kind of click the tape enable, see like this is working. I can actually kind of come in from the tape inputs. So I got the keyboard hooked up. As I said, it's coming on, but right now there's no real sounds that are coming out of the keyboard because, as I said, there's no presets in memory. Like this is literally as if like this thing had just come to life for the first time, because it kind of did. Here, I'll show you a little bit what I'm using. If you can kind of see here on my desktop, it's like a little utility that I found online. It's just a 6S librarian. I'm gonna post a link to it, and I also like found this SYX, like system exclusive DW-6000 factory SYS. So this supposedly contains original factory presets for the DW-6000, but there's a couple of things that we need to make sure that we have here before I can kind of send the MIDI dump. Now I have like obviously my MIDI cable that's going to the MIDI in, but there's a couple of settings here. We need to go under like the parameter, and here's like 81 is the MIDI channel. So we want to make sure the MIDI channel is set to 1. So I'm just gonna like kind of adjust the lever here to 1. Okay, so that's MIDI channel 1. Sorry about the focus, like the lighting is not ideal here. The next setting, note data enable. Setting 1 means note data, and setting 2 is all. So I have to make sure that this is set to all. So I'm gonna put like 82 here, and right now it's just set to 1, so we need to switch that. I'm just gonna click the up button. So now it's set to all. So now it's kind of gonna receive like system exclusive data as well. And the last setting is apparently like they prefer, this is the Omni setting. So this is 83. and they prefer if it's off. Okay, great. So MIDI channel 1, parameter number 2 here for like so that it receives all sorts of note data, and the Omni is off. Let's kind of fire up the SysX librarian. I'm just gonna click on this guy and hit play. And what we should see here is exactly what we're seeing. Look at this. So basically, this is literally like all of the presets that are going into memory. So, you know, like up until, I guess, like 88 presets, or number 88 here. It's actually not 88 presets, it's just like 64 presets. But anyway, okay. So that should have done it. Now, the last thing that we need to do is just kind of like hook this up to my speakers and see if we can get actual sounds. Okay, so we're in Logic now. I'm just gonna like click and make an external MIDI. I want my input 1 and 2, MIDI device port 1, and that should be it. Click create. Look at that. Yeah, I mean, everything sounds great. So I am gonna say cautiously optimistically that this keyboard is fixed. And I guess what the problem was all along was that memory chip, that 6116 memory chip that was apparently fried or corrupted or something, and was kind of keeping the keyboard from like literally like turning on. So now that I replaced that chip, all of a sudden like everything just magically works, which is amazing. So I'm like thrilled. It's getting MIDI in. I mean, it just works. It just works. And wow, that's been like quite the journey. All right, so I am beyond thrilled by this. I mean, I was so worried that I was gonna have to like kind of swap out all sorts of chips in here and stuff like that on this board, and instead it turned out to be like the memory, and you know, which was this guy. And good thing I had the insight to buy a replacement memory chip. And literally, like, I mean, this thing cost me, like, I mean, you know, I spent like $15, but I got like 5 of them. So now I have like spares. But I mean, you know, like, I guess like individually they cost like a couple bucks on eBay. So, you know, literally for like a couple bucks, spent another couple bucks on the sockets. We did replace the power socket there. That was another like, I don't know, like 50 cents or something like that, you know. So like literally we're talking about like, you know, less than $5 in parts. I was able to kind of bring this keyboard back to life. So what happens next? The next thing I want to do is start doing like more of the aesthetic work on the keyboard. I mean, we have like a lot of kind of issues. Like, first of all, there's all this rust right here. I mean, there's some like nasty corrosion. So what I want to do is remove, you know, unscrew all these boards from the base, and then I can start kind of scraping the rust away. I'm just gonna like clean everything out, and I'm just gonna spray some of this clear Rust-Oleum over it so that the rust hopefully doesn't come back. So that's gonna be step number 1. That's what I want to do next. After that, I do want to replace some of the buttons here because as I said, they were not like kind of as responsive. I can order some buttons and just kind of swap them out. It's fairly easy actually. Like, it's not terribly difficult. The sliders were fine. I mean, I don't see any problem with the slider. The joystick, it's a little funky. I think maybe like either this guy is like kind of bent weird, or maybe it's like missing like some spring or something like that in there. So I'm just gonna have to like take a closer look at what's happening. I mean, it's working. It's just a little loose right here. I want to like remove the keyboard as well and just kind of clean it all out and just, you know, just kind of make it as pristine as possible. And then the other thing that I'm gonna do is this set of wheel weights. These are automotive, and I'll show you what they look like. They are, I think, like 1/4 ounce each. They're like these little guys. So they got like a sticky side on here. And size-wise, what I can do is kind of fit them underneath the keys. And you're probably wondering, why would you want to do that? Well, one of my main gripes about the DW-6000 is that the keyboard feels like a little toy. It really does. It's very plasticky. It's just kind of like, I don't know, like just clicky plasticky. I just hate the feel of it. And by putting these weights underneath the keys, you know, so that you don't really see them, obviously, but like, you know, it just kind of gives them a little bit more heft, and I think it really helps this keyboard feel, I don't know, a little bit more professional. You know, like when they made the DW-8000, they, you know, like the DW-8000 keyboard feels like a million times better than this keyboard. This keyboard feels really, really plasticky. So I think by adding some weights, it just kind of helps just kind of give it a little bit more body. You know, I do have like this hole in the case on the front. Kind of sucks that it's like right in the front. I don't know if you can kind of see it. I don't know how I'm gonna fix this. I don't think there is like a way to fix this, honestly. So I might just kind of try to kind of maybe build a little filler or put something underneath that at least like you don't see like the gap in there. But unfortunately, I'm afraid that that's probably not something I can kind of like tackle. All right, so I was able to flip everything over. The bottom of the case is nice and loose, and we can clearly see that there's definitely like a lot of corrosion. I mean, this does not look like regular rust to me. This looks like maybe there was some sort of chemical spill, especially right here. I mean, this looks very, very grungy. All right, so what I like to use for this type of work is this steel brush attached to a drill. This writing right here might be obliterated, but it's all right. Kind of just write it back. What is it? A1209H1.17. Okay, noted. Other than that, with protective goggles, but that's what I'm gonna do. Right, so I think I was able to get the most of it. Whatever was going on here, I mean, it's pretty nasty stuff. I don't know if you can kind of see this, but this is all pitted. So this leads me to believe that this is not just simple rust, but there was like some acid corrosion or something like that going on. The bottom side of the case looks all right to me. I don't think I need to repaint it or anything like that. Even the little rubber feet look pretty decent. So I mean, there's some scuff marks here, but it's not that big of a deal. I don't think I'm gonna worry about this side. I'm just mostly gonna deal with the inside. All right, this is looking so much better. So I just kind of sprayed a clear coat. You can't really see it, but hopefully it's gonna do the job to like kind of keep any corrosion or something from coming back. So I'm putting together all the boards, and one of the things that I wanted to do is finally kind of do something with this battery holder. And what I think I'm gonna do is I think I'm going to drill a couple small little holes on this section right here, and just kind of maybe put it like so. I would urge everybody to do any drilling to do it really, really carefully, and just kind of, as always, measure twice, cut once, right? So I think I'm just gonna be sitting like so. Okay, so what I'm actually gonna do is have like a hot glue gun, and this guy's gonna fit like so. So I'm just gonna like put like a little bit of hot glue here. I mean, granted, it's not really gonna hold it that much, but I think it's gonna help keep things in place a little bit. So, all right. And the other thing I've done is I put like a little bit of shrink wrap here. So I'm just gonna like, slide it over on that side. Now, one of the things that's really important is to kind of keep straight which one is which. So on these batteries, the positive is on top, which means that it's actually like, I can't quite see it, but like it's actually going to the bottom side here. So this needs to be wired there, and then the black is actually gonna go on this side. So put this guy back here. Don't forget like the little plastic cover and the little piece of plastic underneath. Got the battery in here all hooked up. I already tested the connection. Everything looks good. I think like the last thing that we need to do is just kind of fire it up and hopefully I didn't screw anything up, but I mean, you can tell like, it's looking a lot better here. All right, and we're back in business, so everything's on. But what I do want to do, as I said, is replace the buttons. I'm gonna take off the keyboard, give it a nice little cleanup, maybe do a little bit of buffing on the keys to kind of get them a little bit shinier. And then I'm gonna add those automotive weights that hopefully are just gonna make it feel a little bit, just a little bit nicer. And then the last thing I'm gonna do is try to kind of figure out this, why this guy is a little wonky. I can't tell. It's just keep pointing upward. It's supposed to be straight in the middle. I mean, it still works. I mean, everything's fine, but like, yeah, there's definitely something here. I don't know if it's missing a screw or something like that. I just need to look into it. And I'm also gonna give, the whole like case, like this outer shell, like a nice clean. It's not too bad, but I mean, I could kind of use a little bit of cleanup. So when I take all the boards out, I'll probably just kind of put this in a bathtub and just kind of scrub it down with like some soap and water, and I think that's gonna do the trick. I mean, there's still some scuff marks here that I don't think I can do much about. Maybe I can kind of polish this, clear plate here on top. It's gonna make it look a little bit nicer. But I mean, there's some stuff, unfortunately, that the peel, like the paint is peeled off in some spots. I just don't think I can do much about that at all. And then, of course, there is the big gap right here, and this guy, unfortunately, I don't think this is fixable. The most that I can do is maybe just kind of put like a little piece of plastic underneath so that there's not this hole here. Other than that, I think I think we're in pretty good shape here with this keyboard. Alright, so on this Korg DW-6000, I just unscrewed all of the pieces parts from the top side, and now the top case is gonna get like a nice wash. Alright, so here's the mess that is the Korg DW-6000 at the moment. I just unscrewed all of the various components for the top case and just kind of gently put them here. So everything should be fine. As I said, I will replace the buttons, not the button covers, but just the buttons underneath. Here we have the keyboard of the DW-6000, and I mean, it's not in terrible shape, honestly. I mean, all the keys look to be in good shape. One of the things that I tend to like kind of look carefully at is like this little teeth here, just to see. They're very prone to like kind of snapping off, honestly. So I try to kind of look and see if any of them has snapped off, and thankfully everything looks in pretty good shape. I mean, it's a little dirty, but not terrible. I mean, I've seen like way worse. So what I'm gonna do now is I will carefully remove each and every key from here, and that way I can kind of get to the contacts underneath and clean up all the contacts. But basically, you just kind of like, let me see here. You would push down. I'm trying to do this with one hand while holding the camera. You push down, you'll feel the spring, and then with the other hand, I should really do this with both hands, but you can kind of sort of slide this little teeth from here, and then the key just comes right out. And as I said, I mean, this is what the key looks like from underneath. Is there's just like a little spring, and that's all there really is to it. And you can kind of see down there, that's the actual key sensor, and that's it's just like a little contact that when the key goes down, it makes it closes the circuit, and it tells the keyboard, hey, you gotta play this. You gotta play this note. Just a big old bucket with some foam, and I have like the main case in here, and I'm just gonna let it soak, and then I'll just kind of go in with a sponge, just kind of scrub it, like without scratching anything, but just kind of scrub it, the rest of the dirt, and that should be plenty as to get everything nice and clean. all I want to do now is just finish cleaning up the keys, and then I'm gonna see about putting those little weights. I'm not even gonna bother like changing the felts. I mean, as I said, it doesn't look too bad to me. I mean, I think it's fine. You know, it's just like sometimes it's good to like just kind of take that approach of if it ain't broke, don't fix it, because sometimes you can get yourself in trouble without really good reason to do so. And I don't really see any problem with this keyboard. So I think, as I said, I'm just gonna clean the keys, put the weights in, and then just kind of put the keys back in, and that will be that. All right, so I assure you that spending a couple of hours polishing keyboard keys is not the most fun thing that I can think of doing with my time, but I think it's going to make a difference and kind of make them feel nice and smooth to the touch. And have like a little microfiber cloth so I can just kind of finish cleaning up some of the residue. So the next order of business is to stick these weights onto the keys. And as I said, like, I think what I'm gonna do is for the white keys, I'm just gonna put it on the back side like so that you don't really see it. And then for the black keys, I'm just gonna fit them in here inside this little cavity, and it doesn't really affect the functionality of the keyboard. So let's see here. I'm just gonna do this first one just to show you how I go about doing it. And the sticky material on this stuff, I mean, it's designed to like kind of fit on like car wheels, so it's pretty resistant. So it should hang in there pretty well. So I just kind of fit it in there, and then kind of go in and just kind of press it down a little bit just to make sure that it's making good contact. And that's about it. And then you know, this guy's ready. The black keys are back in, and I've been kind of sort of agonizing a little bit like as to where to put the weights on this guy's, because originally I thought, hey, look how clever I am, I'm just gonna put it like right here and it's perfect. And the problem is that between the E and the F key and the B and the C key, that space is not available. It's a lot more narrow. So the weight actually doesn't really fit. You see, it kind of sort of sticks out. So that's a problem. And I could just kind of, for those keys, just kind of switch it up. But I thought, you know what, the way I did it on my other DW-6000, I just kind of placed them like right here on the tip of it. And you never really see it from above. I mean, geez, I mean, you have to like kind of look below just to kind of see it. And also like a lot of like keyboards that have like weighted keys, that's where the weights are, like, you know, on these keys. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. I think I'm just gonna stick these weights right here. I mean, it's nice that they fit really, really well. And I mean, they're almost like kind of exactly the width. I mean, they are basically exactly the width. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. And here it is, the keyboard fully assembled. And it's nice and shiny. It's, I mean, I swear this looks brand new. And you know, some of you might be asking, like, are the weights necessary? I think so. I think it makes a big difference. I mean, as I said, it just kind of adds a little bit of weight, a little bit of mass to the keys, and I think it just kind of changes this keyboard, how it feels from being really plasticky and really just kind of toy-like to having like a really nice feel. Alright, so the shiny keyboard is back in the case, And what I tried to do with the case is just kind of, I run the buffer on this, like kind of plastic section right here to make it nice and shiny. The rest of the case, however, I mean, I wasn't able to do a whole lot. I mean, I tried to kind of buff some stuff out, but honestly, you just can't really do that with this type of case. That's the problem with like these plastic cases from 40 years ago. I mean, like, the ink starts coming off, you get kind of scratches, it starts getting all kind of like funky, and unfortunately, there's not a whole lot that can be done about it. So what I'm ready to do next is replace the buttons on the on the circuit board that goes on these buttons and these 3 buttons right here. And I just wanted to kind of show you guys like something that I think it's really, really important. Okay, so here I have like some replacement buttons, and these I ordered from this company called Taida in Thailand, and these might seem like they're like the right type of button. I mean, you got like this little square thing, and the plastic button just kind of like snaps on top of it. And these might seem kind of nice and they would do the trick. Unfortunately, I found, much to my dismay, that these guys are not good. And the reason why they're not good is because they have like ever so slightly a bit of a play sideways, and when you put like the plastic button caps on top of it and then you put them back, they'll come out all crooked and stuff, and it just looks awful. Like it just I mean, the buttons work, it's just that like they're all like kind of weird and crooked and loose, and it just looks terrible. So instead, what I recommend is these guys that have this blue cap. These are more expensive, obviously. I mean, I think these guys are like 60 cents a piece versus these guys that are probably like 5 cents a piece or something like that. But this is the ones that you want. You want the ones that have this blue cap that I think they're like, high quality sort of buttons. I can put a link in the description. I got these from Mauser. And as I said, they're more expensive, but they're totally worth it because they basically have zero play in here. So when you put like the button caps on top and then you put them back here, they're all nice and straight, and it just looks like a professional job, and it doesn't look like some weird wonky amateur hour kind of stuff with these guys. I don't know how this is gonna work, but I'm gonna try to show you a little bit like the process that I use for these guys. I'm just gonna do like these 3 right now, and then you can extrapolate the rest of the buttons. I did the same way. So the first thing I do is I get this thing out. Hopefully you guys can kind of see. I mean, each button has like 4 different solder points. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it says here on the back anyway, switch 1, switch 2, switch 3. So what I do is I use this solder sucker, and what I have found is actually that this is not terribly difficult to do. I don't know, like some of the solder sucking sometimes ends up being like very, very challenging. But when I've done it in the past on these keyboards, the solder has come off like pretty easily. So I'm just gonna try to show you a little bit like how I go about it. Just kind of heat up the pad here, and then just kind of put this guy here, and poof. And yeah, it comes off reasonably well. Let's do the next one. And poof. And then the next one. So I just gotta melt it, get it all shiny, and then go in here and suck the solder out. And last one for this button. And poof. Okay. So that's part 1. And then the next thing I do is I use this little razor. It's kind of like dull, but like what I need is for it to be thin enough. So what I try to do is I try to jam, this little razor blade in underneath the button, and just kind of gently try to kind of pry it open. And usually it comes right off. It hasn't been that big of a problem. So as I said, if necessary, sometimes you might have to like go back here with the soldering iron just to kind of loosen in case there's like some solder stuck. But I mean, you can see like this guy came right off. So replaced all the buttons, cleaned things up a little bit, sprayed some contact cleaner into things. To me, like replacing the switches on these keyboards is one of the best quality of life improvements you can do for yourself. It's very easy to do. As I said, like the solder comes right off with a quality solder sucker, and the buttons, like they only go in one way, and they also have like two little notches. I don't know if you can kind of see it, probably not, but like two little plastic notches that kind of fit into this hole. So it's basically impossible to like put them in wrong. And they solder right back up really easily. And to me, like, as I said, like this is a huge quality of life, because there's nothing more annoying than you push a button and it double triggers or it doesn't trigger at all, and then it just gets frustrating. So, definitely worth it. All right, so I put some felt, just like, using some Elmer glue. And all I have to do is now just kind of cut the middle so that the actual slider can fit in there. And that's really all. It's just a little extra protection from like dirt getting in there. All right, so time to put the buttons back in. Obviously, the ones with the LEDs have this little indentation here. But basically, they should kind of just snap on. I don't know if you can see here. Just kind of press a little hard because it's a tight fit. But it should fit because I've done it before. There you go. So that's how it fits. Do the next one. Oh my god, it is a tight fit. Just make sure the LED is not accidentally like bent backwards or anything like that, because that would suck. Got all the buttons back in place. Ready to put these guys in. New felt is applied so that and the slits have been cut out. Last thing I'm gonna suggest is I have like a little bit of this kind of lens cleaning tissue. Just kind of like clean this little windows back here. This is where like the these displays will show through, and there's nothing more annoying than just having some schmutz in there that gets in the way and just makes it look really ugly. So one last thing I forgot before I put everything back. I mean, aside from doing a nice cleaning on all these plugs, it's always a good idea to just kind of double check and triple check the connections here, that make sure nothing is cracked or anything like that. And the reason why is because people you're going to be plugging and unplugging things a lot in all these ports, so there's going to be stress put onto all of the little 1/4 inch inputs and outputs. So because of that, it's possible that there might be some stress put on the solder. So it's really important to just kind of double check and make sure that there's nothing that is accidentally cracked, or else it's going to lead to intermittent signals or crackling or some other issues. So just give it a nice little look over, ideally with some magnifying glasses, just to make sure that there's nothing that looks suspicious. And if it does, just do a quick resolder and then you should be good to go. All right, I think I have everything reassembled. If you end up with some extra screws, it's probably because there's some hidden little holes. There was one right here that was kind of hidden by the cables. It's easy to miss. And then again, there's some holes like this guy, for instance, that doesn't have anything beneath, so there's nothing to screw into. So it's just kind of weird, but whatever. It's what Korg decided to do. But I think I got all the screws back in. So from what I can gather, this is the good one. That's the not so good one. So with the springs out, obviously there's nothing keeping them from doing like this. However, you can kind of see that on the good one, it kind of goes back to the middle and it stays pretty much in place. With the not so good one, there's definitely this kind of looseness to it. So the other thing I'm noticing, I don't know if you can see it on camera, this is a good one. That's like nice and flush against the surface. And this is the bad one, and it's kind of like lifted off the surface. It's almost like it's not fully in position here. I don't know if you can see this, but there's just two little steel tongues that I had to like kind of bend straight. You can see like in the other one how they're bent inward to keep the thing attached to the plastic. So I've bent it straight, and now I should be able to just kind of simply pry it off like so. So I can kind of take a little bit of a closer look. Ah, come on, little buddy, you can do it. All right, so this guy off. You can definitely see there's a couple of issues here, but the most notable one, I don't know if the camera is going to focus, but it's part of it is kind of snapped off here. I just don't know if there's a whole lot I can do about this. I mean, might be able to kind of rebuild it with like some super glue maybe. I'm not sure. This is like a difficult part to come to, and if I find it, it's probably gonna be like really pricey. My kind of hack, I think, is going to be to super glue this into this so that it just has like a little bit of a stronger grip. I mean, I don't see why that shouldn't be okay. So what I need to do is I need to insert this guy back in here, position this guy carefully in there, and then kind of with one of those little like needle nose super glue dispensers, just trying to kind of build up a little bit of connection in there, and hopefully that will work. They want the hype shit. Well, would you look at that? Basically, my little trick with the super glue appears to be working. I don't know if you can see it in there, but now this guy is staying in the middle position. It's just like much more stable than it was before. So I think it's a combination of that and maybe like tightening up the little steel tongues in there to kind of make it nice and tight. But it works. I think I'm just gonna put like a little bit of grease in there just to kind of make sure that it's kind of rolling smoothly. But beyond that, I think that this joystick is now fully as cool as it can be. So the joystick is back in place, and I think I'm finally ready to close this guy up once and for all and put all the screws back in and fire it up just to make sure that we didn't screw anything up in the process. However, before I do that, I thought it might be kind of interesting to just kind of recap a little bit like what all was done to this Korg DW-6000. So if you remember, I got it in, I fired it up, nothing worked. There was nothing on the displays. There was this high-pitched weird sweep on the outputs, but basically this keyboard was dead on arrival. So the first thing I did is actually kind of replace the power socket here to make it work with just like a more standard kind of 3-prong socket, because I don't have any 2-prong power cables. So that was like the easy part. Kind of like rewired everything and put like some shrink wrap on the ends just to make it extra safe. The next thing I did is I tested all the output voltages to kind of make sure that they were like, you know, within spec and everything was working fine. A lot of people will automatically just kind of like replace like the electrolytic capacitors just for the hell of it, honestly. And to me, it's like, if it works, it works. I mean, there's absolutely no reason to like just kind of start replacing parts if there's nothing wrong with them. So then we moved on to try to kind of narrow down a little bit like where the fault might be and why the keyboard wasn't working at all. And what we ended up doing is, after swapping out some parts with my other working DW-6000, we narrowed it down to this board right here, which is like where the processing is happening. And there was obviously some spill that had happened, or maybe like the battery leaked around this area, so there was like a lot of corrosion going on. So the first thing I did is like desoldered this chip and then like the socket for like the firmware, and cleaned everything up, and like double checked and triple checked all the connections with my continuity meter, just to kind of make sure that everything was connecting to where it's supposed to be. Then I put like brand new sockets in there, and then I put the chips back in, plugged it in. Nothing happened, of course. And I was like, oh my God, like, what are we gonna do now? Because I really don't have any more ideas, and it could be any number of chips, including the main processor, that could be at fault. And what ended up happening is, actually, I had ordered on a hunch some new RAM on eBay, and I received it just in time to like swap it out. And sure enough, when I did, I turned on the keyboard and everything all of a sudden worked magically. So it turned out that like whatever spill had happened in this area definitely had fried the RAM, and just replacing this with a new RAM chip, 6116, I believe, that solved the problem and brought everything back to working order. So then the next step was to put like a battery holder for like the memory battery, just because of the fact that Korg uses this like batteries that are normally placed here that are soldered right onto the board, and then when you got to swap them, it's just like a big mess, and you got to desolder them and then solder a new one, and they're like more expensive because you got to get like the special ones. Anyway, I think this is a much more elegant way of doing it, and I just kind of screwed it in and hot glued it on there. So then after this portion of the board was done, oh yeah, like, I mean, I also had to clean out the bottom case because there was like a lot of corrosion happening, so I had to like kind of scrape it all out. After that was done, we moved on to the top portion of the keyboard. I took everything apart, and the first thing I did is just kind of wash everything, including like the keyboard and each individual keys. And then I polished the keys, which remarkably, I didn't think it was going to make that big of a difference, but I got to tell you, it makes a huge difference in how the keyboard feels. I mean, I was surprised. I thought I was wasting my time by polishing the keys because they were not in bad shape to begin with. But when I compare it now to my other keyboards, it's like night and day. And now I want to polish the keys on every single one of my other keyboards as well. Then what we did is we added a little bit of weights on the bottom of the keys, using those automotive weights that I recommend using, and this kind of makes the keys feel a little less plasticky and just gives them a little bit more heft, which I think helps the keyboard feel a little nicer to the touch. So after having put that back in, I moved on to these two control boards, and what I did is I replaced all of the buttons because I noticed that like some of the original buttons were kind of sticking, and it was kind of like creating like some entering like double numbers or no numbers at all, and it was just like really annoying. And so I replaced all the buttons. There's like 3 here, there's another like 10, 11, 12, 13 I think here. So after that, I also ran some contact cleaner on the sliders just to make sure that they were nice and smooth, although I think the sliders on this keyboard were in pretty good shape to begin with. I replaced the felt on, behind the sliders to, to make sure that I keep any additional dirt out of the way. And last but not least, we moved on to the joystick, which was kind of like, had obviously like got like, survived a fall or something like that, because it was all kind of bent and just didn't want to stay in the center. And what I ended up doing is bend this, this metal piece a little bit because it was a little bit bent weird. But most importantly, I ended up putting a little bit of super glue on this connection here and retightening these potentiometers to the plastic casing, and that seems to have done the trick. Okay, I think this is all. So I'm definitely ready to put this back together and then hook it up to my computer, fire it up, and see what it sounds like. All right, we got it. The Korg DW-6000 is back in full working order, and I couldn't be happier about it. It's been a challenging ride, but glad we got to the finish line. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video to find out what the cat will drag in next.